Phase 2 parking as well as structure, so that way it's not going to stay a dirt lot. So here's a site plan showing Phase 1. Here is the structure. The shaded area here is the hydro-seeded portion I was just discussing. This is that secondary access. As you can see, the parking area back here is fully landscaped per all the appropriate standards. It runs along the perimeter. Now this is Phase 2. The structure is right through here. Here's the parking area, and again, landscaping all through the perimeter, you can see. Operation of the facility. The hours of operation will be Monday through Thursday from 5:30 a.m. to 6 a.m. and again from 8:30 p.m. to 9:15 p.m. Friday, which is the traditional day of worship for the Islam faith, will be 12:15 p.m. to 2:45 p.m. and then again 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Saturday, on the last week of the month, will be from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. and Sunday, which will be for Sunday school type purposes only, will be from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. A few other items for the operational characteristics of the facility is that there are no formal daycare facilities proposed, and there's no formal educational institution, with the exception of Sunday school type classes that are indicative of religious facilities. There are also no external speakers, and there are no audible calls to prayer that will be part of Phase 1 or Phase 2. A traffic study was prepared for the project in order to get a better grasp of what may or may not happen with regards to traffic. The study was prepared by an independent firm. The study assumed completion of both phases by 2013. Now that was done in order to look at this from a worst case type scenario. The study analyzed several intersections and cumulative projects. The intersections that were analyzed were Winchester Road's intersections with Margarita and Nicholas Road's intersections with General Kearney Road and Cayuga Libre, as well as the intersection of Walcott Lane and La Serena Way. The cumulative projects that were included in the analysis included the recently approved Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses, which is another religious facility, the Serafina Housing Tract, which is residential, Rurapah Ranch, which is a residential development, as well as a recently proposed AM/PM car wash, and the Walcott Estates, which is another residential development. Now, a 2% per year growth factor was also used in the analysis, and that's pretty much industry standard to use the 2%. These variables were studied during the following time frames. We looked at, or the consultants, looked at the existing year, 2010. We looked at opening year 2013 with the impacts to be with the project and without the project. And remember, when I say with, I'm meaning both phases at the same time. Then the cumulative was brought in at 2013 with and without the project, including Rurapah. And then we excluded Rurapah and did the same analysis. And the reason that was done is because Rurapah, when it finally comes in, is going to have some substantial traffic impacts. But that developer has been required to provide a lot of different mitigation and improvements in order to handle that. So in the chance that takes a long time, we wanted to see what would happen if those improvements were never built at all. So we looked at it excluding Rurapah and their improvements. And the time the counts were taken, we looked at a Friday from peak hours between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. And it's important to remember that school was in session. This wasn't the time when the Tioga Valley Unified School District was out for vacation or anything. They were in class. And then we also looked at Sunday between the peak hours of 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. After all this analysis was compiled, we saw that the project will have no adverse impact on the surrounding street system, provided the mitigation proposed by the consultants is implemented. And that mitigation is the project needs to restripe the eastbound Nicholas Road at Cayuga Libre and provide a two-way left turn lane. Now, through the course of this project, staff has received a variety of questions, and what we'd like to do now is answer those questions to the public that we've been receiving. First question we got is, will there be audible calls to prayer? The answer is no, there will be no external speakers and no audible calls to prayer for either phase. Does the project include a basement? The answer is no. How will the project be funded? The city only evaluates projects from a land use perspective, and we never use funding sources as part of the land use review. Was the traffic consultant selected by the applicant? Again, the answer is no. The city selected the applicant, and we used our standard request for proposal process in order to select the consultant. Is it appropriate to place a mosque next to adjacent churches and existing residential? Well, the code evaluates the mosque as a religious facility. And as I indicated earlier, religious facilities are permitted in all residential zones upon the approval of a conditional use permit. Proximity to other religious facilities is only evaluated on land use type considerations. Isn't the structure too high, and won't it interfere with the French Valley Airport? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the development code does allow for architectural elements to exceed the zone height by 15%. When you include the minarets and the 3 extra feet for the crescents, you're looking at an extra 8 feet above what the maximum is. In addition, the Riverside County Airport Land Use Commission reviewed the project, and they provided mitigation, so they were okay with it. Isn't the structure too large? Again, the project meets all the development code requirements and is within the range of the adjacent religious facilities. Calvary Baptist, per the approved plans and staff reports, was approved at 21,453 square feet. Grace Presbyterian was originally approved for 22,770 square feet, but they received an approval for an additional 3,932, which brought the total to 27,702 square feet. That was done back in '08. How is parking calculated? I mentioned this before, but it's worth repeating. Parking, again, is done at 1 space per every 3 fixed seats, or 1 space per every 35 square feet of area where there are no fixed seats. There are no fixed seats in this project, so we went with the 1 space per every 35 square feet. From an environmental perspective, staff prepared a mitigated negative declaration for CEQA guidelines, section 15070. And we determined through that mitigation that the project will not have any significant effects on the environment, provided the mitigation and the mitigation monitoring program and the conditions of approval are followed. Given the information I just presented, staff recommends approval of PA 080241 and 0242 based upon the required findings and mitigation and subjected to the recommended conditions of approval. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm available for any questions. The applicant is here if you have questions for them, and the traffic consultant is here as well should you want to speak with them. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. In the queue, any questions for staff? Mr. Harder?
Would it be possible to get the traffic consultant up for a few questions? Mr. Tormo, good evening.
And with me is George Gassane, who also worked in presenting this.
We have, in the packet that we received, there's a number of comments that have already been submitted, and I think we're going to see a few more questions brought up about traffic and traffic impact and whatnot. We have the advantage of having been able to review your study, but could you give just a little bit more detail on how that's conducted and the expertise of the firm and just exactly, we know the times that it was conducted, but just so that people have a better idea how a traffic study occurs.
Certainly. The purpose of the traffic study, and it supports an environmental process, is to try and identify whether or not there is any type of a congestion impact that is going to occur within a certain distance, a reasonable distance out from a proposed project. And so to do that, we look at these scenarios that Eric explained and compare what happens if the project is added incrementally on top of what would either be there right now, what is there on the ground right now, or what would be there in the future with the project added. And we're looking for that incremental difference as to whether or not there's extra delay, extra congestion that are defined in thresholds that the city and the region adopts for that. And if there is any impact, we then look for some sort of physical improvement that can be made to ameliorate that. And in this case, that led to the recommended improvement with the two-way left turn lane entering the facility. We look at this for whatever peak to typical peak times that are going on with facilities that often overlaps with things like commuter peaks. And in this case, that turned out to be something on a Friday afternoon that was very close to the discharge of the school near Winchester Nicholas. And so it was that combined effect of looking for impacts, reporting them, and looking for an improvement that could ameliorate that, and putting it together and documenting that in a traffic report.
Just again, and we don't want to go into too much detail, but how are you projecting out, say, for 2013, 2014, or how is that calculated then? I mean, how would you come up with, I mean, it doesn't exist, so how would you figure that?
Well, there's two components to it. What's going on with the project and what's going on with everything else. With the project, as we said, we assume that both phases were built, completely built, and the entirety of the project was there for 2013. But more interestingly, for what's going on the surrounding streets, you have, of course, what we measure right now. In addition to that, in working with the planning department and staff, we look for all of the other applied for or potential pending projects in the system that have yet to be built and have yet to be contributing their traffic to the street system. And we account for them one by one. They're called the cumulative projects, and we incrementally keep adding and layering on the additional traffic that they're adding. And in case there's something that might have been missed, some other regional growth, we also add on, let's call it an allowance, this 2% per year, that is meant to catch anything else that possibly could be contributing to growth in that area. And we add all of that up, and that gives us our background against which we're comparing to.
Finally, from my end, could you just explain a little bit of the expertise of the firm with regards to doing traffic study? I would imagine this is probably not our first study.
True, we do individually as well as within the firm dozens, if not hundreds of these things over a several-year period of time. Most of us come from a civil engineering background. Many of us, like myself, have worked in for public agencies and municipalities before as traffic engineers. We're licensed as often, in my case, as a traffic engineer and often as civil engineers as well. And we also use planners in our industry. And so, and the organization that tends to unite all of us is the Institute of Transportation Engineers, an international organization that we turn to for reference help.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Jones? The applicant's here. By the way, I want to thank everybody for giving these guys an opportunity to talk, whether it be staff, applicant, and then when we get to the public hearing, I'll talk more about some ground rules. But I appreciate everyone quiet and letting people speak, so thank you very much.
My name is Stephen Sigler of Access 3 Architecture. We're the architectural firm that designed and provided the project.
My name is Hadi Nayel. I am the ICTV chairman, the Islamic Center of Temecula Valley.
Do you have any questions?
Do we have any questions for the applicant this evening? Okay, I guess
Thank you.
no problem at all. All right. Before we move on to the actual public hearing, I'd like to, if I could for a few minutes, just go through some ground rules. Probably hopefully make it easier for everyone. We have a lot of speakers tonight. Mr. Fisk, how many speakers do we have so far?
Currently have 84 requests to speak.
84. With 84, we're probably looking at about 4 to 5 hours. What we would do, and what I would ask again too, if whoever is speaking, they'll have their opportunity to speak, and please let them speak. If you've got comments or anything like that, obviously when it's your turn to speak, you're more than welcome to speak and comment on things. The important part, just so you know, you get 3 minutes. 3 minutes your time limit. When you come up to the podium, you'll see, it looks like a little red light up here. You'll see a red, a yellow, and a green. Green means go. Yellow means, well, what's yellow mean? You're going to go through the red light as fast as you can. What that means is you don't have a lot of time. So you've got roughly about 30 seconds left when you see the yellow. And when you hit red, your time's up. A couple things too, and I forgot to mention this early. Restrooms right out the door. No problem at any time if you need to use the restroom. Cell phones, if you could put them on vibrate, so at least we don't hear any interruptions from the cell phones. So that we would appreciate. Just so you know, we're a bunch of older guys up here, so we will have to probably every hour
probably take a restroom break. And some of these guys have bad backs and legs, so if you see them get up, it doesn't mean they're for anything or opposing anything.